Welcome to Ag Matters, covering positive agriculture stories from across Alaska on Big Cabbage Radio.
Mike Chmielewski here at Big Cabbage Radio in Palmer, Alaska, and it's my great pleasure to welcome two gentlemen. I believe they are gentlemen. They look like gentlemen, who are going to be talking about the Rebarchek Farm and a whole variety of things associated with it. LaMarr Anderson is one person. He's sitting here before us. And LaMarr, welcome. And would you introduce the other guy?
Sure. The gentleman with me is Jeff Smeek, who is the director for the Palmer Soil and Water Conservation District.
Oh.
And he's been a partner with us for a number of years, a very active participant who has been doing a lot out there, as well as an excellent partner helping us, the fair, and myself, as we have developed the Rebarchek Farm over the last number of years.
You've done a nice job of describing his role. Welcome, Jeff. But let's look at you a moment here. LaMarr, you have occupied many different positions around the community. I know that over the years. What is your position with the Rebarchek development? What is your official title?
Well, I'm not sure that it's an official title per se, but basically I was the assistant to Bill Allen, who was the project manager for the development of the Rebarchek Farm. And then here about 3 years ago, he retired, so I assumed that role, and we finished basically the facility development and have been moving and are now really more in the operational mode in terms of the facilities and the mission fulfillment that the State Fair has for the Rebarchek Farm, which is a historic colony farm, which is on the National Register of Historic Places.
Oh, wonderful.
So multi.
And some listeners may have heard the name Rebarchek, but let's talk about location. That's always the question. We know where the Alaska State Fair is. Many people do. It's a big fairground. Where's the Rebarchek Farm and location to that, and what's its relationship to the fair?
The property is owned by the Alaska State Fair. It was procured by them a number of years ago, and then has for many years was basically a hayfield. But it is adjacent to the main fairgrounds. As you go into the red parking lot and you go past the miners' ball field.
On the left, right?
On the left, as you keep going down Rebarchek Drive.
Oh, okay.
Then on the first parcel of land on the right is a open field that is used by the fair for RVs and camping during the fair.
Okay.
But next to that parcel then is the Rebarchek Farm.
Okay.
So it's just right off of Rebarchek Drive, adjacent to the main fairgrounds.
So that does location. Now, when we know that it's butting up against the fair, who owns that property? I mean, the Rebarchek Farm itself, is that owned by somebody?
The State Fair.
The State Fair, okay.
Yes, the nonprofit.
Okay, so they own that property.
Yes, correct.
All right. How did they receive it? Do you have any sense of that history?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I know that they own that parcel and all the way to the Glen Highway, which is the red parking lot and that RV lot.
Okay.
They don't own from the farm parcel to Inner Springer Loop that's currently occupied by Alaska Demolition.
Got it. Okay. That helps, I think, place all of this properly. Your relationship to that project right now, is there some subset of people that are developing it, or is this more a project under the auspices of the fair? How does that work?
Well, the actual management of the farm is basically my role, primarily as a volunteer.
Okay.
And then we have volunteers who work various aspects, whether it's the historical portion. The fair staff is involved. We do rent the facilities for the barn, or there are some lease opportunities for the agricultural plots. But the basically day-to-day operation is primarily me for the State Fair.
Okay. Now, I've been over there not too long ago for a meeting that was held there, but maybe just describe briefly what kind of things are done there at the fair. I know at the Rebarchek Farm, I know during the fair, it's a wonderful place to visit as part of the fair activities, but there's the rest of the year. What happens in those buildings?
The original farmhouse has been restored to resemble and to represent a typical colony farmhouse up through the mid-1950s.
Okay.
So that's available for people to see when we have a open house, or we do have opportunities for tours in the future for people who want to see that historic side of it. We then also restored an original colony barn.
Oh.
And we made that into a multiple purpose facility that can be rented, but part of our mission is to also support agricultural youth programs. So 4-H meets there, different clubs, FFA, the Grange, and we have special rates for agricultural purpose meetings. Steve Brown from the Extensions service. We've had various workshops and those type of things, all related to help promoting agricultural in the community and for people to learn.
Okay, now a couple of places here you've said we. Which we are we talking about? The fair, or is there a separate entity that people would contact in order to rent or use the facility?
If they're wanting to rent the facility, then they go through the normal fair facilities rent. If you're talking about for the agricultural uses, whether it's the greenhouse or let's say it's the 4-H or the FFA, we've also had the Anchorage Soil Water Conservation. They held a workshop there. That's primarily work directly with me.
Okay.
And then I coordinate with the fair staff so we don't have conflicts.
Gotcha. Okay. LaMarr has done a great job of, I think, placing the Rebarchek Farm in a particular location, relationship to the fair, etc. But now, Jeff.
Yes.
You have the opportunity to talk perhaps a little bit about how you see the farm both presently or in the history of soils here in this area. Or perhaps before that, what do you do?
That covers such a wide gamut, it's hard to pin down.
That's okay. We got time.
I manage the Soil and Water Conservation District, but my formal training is I'm an agricultural specialist, so that's where I really got involved with the Rebarchek Farm. Is Bill and LaMarr came to the Conservation District and said, hey, we're interested in developing. Do you have any ideas? So we were able to provide a little bit of guidance, and then when I found out its exact location, it's like, wow, you have some of the best soil in the state.
Ah, that's what I was
This is a fantastic location. And the farm invested wonderfully in irrigation, so now we have the combination of fantastic soil with water. So it's just a great place.
Talk a little bit, if you have some sense of the history of that farm. I know I spoke to some people who've been involved with the Rebarchek family over time, or the Rempel family is another group, that we're talking about soils and the differences of the soils in various areas. But do you have any sense of the Rebarchek farm and its history of being a farm?
I only know it from when it was transferred from a hayfield into now it's multiple use, so I really don't know much of the history.
Okay, so it'd been a hayfield for a while, and now hay is no longer a part of what's produced there?
It's too small for most commercial operations to want to bring their equipment in. Some of the adjacent fields are used by the fair, and when they're not used for parking, some hay is taken off of those fields, but they're much larger, and it's worth bringing the equipment into those larger fields.
Okay. Maybe you could talk just a little bit about the variety of soil. You know, when we talk about soils in the valley here, every time I speak to someone, this morning I interviewed someone else who has a small farm up on Lazy Mountain, and we were talking about the differences of the soil there as opposed to Vanderweel or any of the other locations around. Is there anything beyond, when you say really great soil there at Rebarchek Farm, what does that mean?
It means that it is able to hold water when we do get our infrequent rain, but it doesn't hold it to make it soupy, so the water stays in the right place, and then when we have too much water, it drains out the bottom, but it absorbs in quite nicely. There's a good level of organic matter, so when it's fertilized properly, it delivers the nutrients throughout the growing season. So essentially it's the same soil type as the Butte, the Rebarchek Springer Loop area, and then all the way down to the Matanuska Experiment Farm. That's all about the same soil type.
Okay. All right. Would it be a good soil for rhubarb?
Yes, I grow it wonderfully there.
Full disclosure, I understand you may have planted more than one rhubarb plant in your life.
Yes, I did. I planted hundreds.
Okay. Rhubarb's a favorite of ours in part because it's one of the earliest to pop up, and it just does wonderfully. So let's switch back to LaMarr for a moment. When we're talking about multi-purpose production there, what's going on? What's growing there?
Well, what we did, there's about probably 8 to 10 acres that we surveyed and broke into half-acre plots. And those are intended for people like Jeff, who has wanted good soil to do experimentation with different crops. He's done different things out there with different crops and experimentations ongoing to this day. We added the irrigation so that every half-acre plot has its water source. And the basic purpose of it is to have land available at very reasonable cost to a number of variety or niches of people interested in agricultural. One would be a professional like Jeff, who is looking for some additional land to be able to do some experimentation. He had some contracts with the Material Resource Center, and they did some things out there. We also then, this was probably about 5 years ago, we had a couple of couples who were interested in starting farming, particularly with rhodiola. But they didn't have land, but they wanted to get involved in that agricultural product. So they were able then to very nominally lease land that was not available elsewhere for them. The other purpose is someone who wants to learn farming, but they can't afford land, or a niche right now is really kind of like your very intensive farming, where they don't need a whole lot of land, but land is so expensive.
Sure.
And there may not be available, or it may be large. When we are leasing to a small private individual, we charge $100 for the summer.
Okay.
If it's a nonprofit or another type group, well, then it's $200. So that's where we're trying to encourage. This last year, Connect Tribe leased a number of parcels because there were just different situations from where they'd been farming before, and they needed some additional property land. But we have it in the half acre, so depending on what the demand is, we were able to provide some sizable amount of land to the Connect Tribe or even Jeff, because we don't have yet very many people or groups wanting a small parcel, but we preserve that option from year to year so we can adapt to and meet what the need is from a community source of people wanting to be involved in agricultural. The other advantages is like when we have a small group, for instance, like the rhodiola farmer, when they need some guidance, they want some help, we pair them up with people like Jeff, who can help give them advice. We had some folks who were interested in doing some potato, their own little section this last year, and we gave them their section. They leased their little section, but there was just a lot of things. It's the first time they'd done it, and so there's just a lot of advice, and we can pair them up with people then who can serve as a mentor to them.
Mike Chmielewski here at Big Cabbage Radio in Palmer, Alaska. I'm speaking with LaMarr and Jeff, and we've been talking about the Rebarchek Farm and how it fits into the community here. You've done a nice job, both of you, of describing the farm in terms of where it is now, a little bit of its history. What I'm curious about its continuing evolution. So I'm guessing I haven't come to the point where you're saying it's finished, it's done, but you're going to be doing some other things with it. What are those other things that you have or you see coming over the horizon?
From the youth education and supporting agricultural for tomorrow, I'm striving to be able to provide more facilities, some spaces for animal projects. For instance, we've had for the last couple of years some kids who live in a neighborhood where they can't raise their goat or turkeys or those type of things. So we have facilities there that we can expand upon so that more kids can raise their project there. There is a interest in terms of swine to have a few.
Okay.
But that's still up in the air whether or not we'll be able to do that. But that's where we're striving to do, so that if you've got some kids or grandkids that are interested in agricultural and we want to keep them interested in agricultural, that's where the future farmers are going to be. And that's like we have a greenhouse for them, but that area that they're not able to use, Jeff uses extensively. Anchorage Soil Water Conservation, the Connect Tribe, they've used portions of the greenhouse for their projects.
Got it.
So we try and support both, but we want to always be able to help encourage the youth side.
What about hoop houses? Are you doing anything with hoop houses?
We were looking at writing a grant to get a hoop house. What is currently on site is truly a greenhouse. It has
right. I was thinking about that.
It has heat in it. We're just looking at grant opportunities to see if it's worth putting a hoop house on for the non-heated agriculture.
Right. I've been interviewing a variety of different people who have been speaking highly about hoops. They say, whoa, made a big difference in what we're doing. There's little in cost for install, but once in there. In fact, our own garden area in our home, we have a space which could support a hoop. And so I keep looking, saying,
Well, one of the projects, and this was Jeff's idea that I hope to do this year, is, and Jeff, you can explain it better than I can, but basically doing a workshop, a demonstration class for community members to build a hoop house from a
Garage in a box kit.
garage
sign me
in the
up.
box.
Sign me up.
Because that's really what the Rebarchek facilities are for. It's not for necessarily just established farmers, but that's why this last year we had a mentored potato workshop where basically it was we had a class taught by Jeff and we had 20 participants. It was our first year and we're going to expand it this year, but basically Jeff gave them a workshop with the different varieties that they could do, and then we went out, the field was prepped for them, and we showed them, and they did their planting of their potatoes. And later on then, when it was time to start mounding and start providing the care, we called them back, and then at the end of the year, then they came back and they were able to harvest their potatoes. So the purpose was to let people who don't know how to do, whether it's potatoes, hopefully we'll do cabbages, or like the hoop house, is to provide the experience and hands-on mentoring in terms of how a homeowner, a community member, or a small group can get involved. They don't have to learn it the hard way just themselves, and see that, hey, you don't really need very much space. Potatoes don't take a whole lot of work. You can really do it in your backyard.
Right.
And just educate more people that way.
Wow, wonderful, LaMarr.
The other opportunity is, because I've been doing this for a while, I have a lot of specialized equipment, so people can see what hand tools are available if you're shopping online versus having to go to locally, because most of the specialty hand tools for a garden aren't available here.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it gives them a chance to try it out and see it. So I thought they were great classes. And people, it's all informal, so they're out yelling out questions, and you can work with each group and say, you really don't need to dig it down 8 inches. Most of us can stop at 2.
Right, I understand. Well, we're just about out of time, but there's time enough for a minute or two from each of you as we summarize or say something that we haven't said already that's important for listeners to hear. So, LaMarr, anything else?
I would just, people that are particularly young people or farmers who are interested and need a small plot of land, like a half acre or an acre, to grow some crops or experiment with, come talk to us, because we have land available that you can pursue your agricultural desires.
Right. And Rebarchek, you have a website, or what's the best contact approach?
We do have, through the Alaska State Fair's website, there's a tab on the Rebarchek.
Okay.
The best way is just to get a hold of me, and they can do that by calling me direct, would be fine.
And the number to contact you is up on that website?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, that leaves you, Jeff.
This is a fantastic opportunity for someone who wants to learn how to go from the tiny little garden to a little bit bigger, so scale up a bit, see what kind of equipment is appropriate. Working as a partner with the fairground has been absolutely amazing. We mentioned something to LaMarr, and it gets onto the Facebook page, and all of a sudden the class is filled up sometimes within a week. It's just an amazing network. So I think all the people out listening, watch the Fairgrounds Facebook page and the website.
Okay. All right. Gentlemen, lots of good work you've both done. Thank you for coming in today. I think listeners know quite a bit more about the Rebarchek Farm than they did when we started. Stay well out there.
You've been listening to Ag Matters, covering positive agriculture stories from across Alaska. Ag Matters is a production of Radio Free Palmer, recorded at our studios in Palmer, Alaska. For more information about this program, email manager@radiofreepalmer.org.